I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. I am happy to be joined by two gentlemen that you know and love very well. Let's go ahead and introduce them and get the ball rolling. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
I'm doing really well. Got up, had a cup of coffee, thought about the fights, looked at the news, freaked out a little bit, and then got ready to lock in and talk to you guys for a while.
I swear, I think your your preview shows have become like a curse on the actual event cards. Whatever fight that you prepare the most for, that's the one that's going to fall out. Like literally the moment you upload to the YouTube channel. So
yeah,
sorry, man.
Okay, this is a real question, Ben, if you can think of it. Has there been a preview show that you've put out in the last couple months that has just stayed together all the way through?
That's made it intact?
Yes.
There have been a couple. Like normally we record Wednesday, like the week before. So but those something always falls off.
Oh yeah.
The ones that we have to push to like Friday
Saturday,
or Sunday,
yeah.
like those, a few of those have made it through, but not many.
Dang, man.
Yeah, the lesson here, kids, is wait till the last minute. All right, so
Procrastination, take you places.
Yeah, it helps a lot in life, depending on how you look at things. And of course, we got the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Jay Petrie. What's going on today, brother?
There is a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to have a big, long intro section. This is a tough stat of the week, though, because you want to talk about Wonderboy Thompson, his performance, and something like that, but I don't have a lot of good information there that sounds good. So we're going to go with 8. 8's the stat of the week. Why I say the stat of the week? Because Rafael Dos Anjos has fought for 8 full hours in the octagon. That's the record. More than Frankie Edgar and all of the names, the Diego Sanchez's and GSPs that you can think of. 8 a full workday of actual combat time in the cage. It's almost imperceivable.
That's crazy. So if you are sitting at your office right now, you got this playing, and obviously the volume's not going to be too loud because we do curse sometimes on this show. But this whole time you're sitting at your desk, you're doing your admin work or whatever the case may be, you could be getting punched in the face
the whole day
without a lunch break,
without anything.
Oh my God!
That doesn't even include minute breaks or anything like that. That is
no smoke break for you,
time
bro.
Combat.
You can't go to the water cooler and sip and just chill and talk about The Bachelor the night before. You can't do that. Is The Bachelor, is that still a show?
Probably.
Okay.
Well, you can if you like take them down and grind for a while, like
on The Bachelor.
Like Forrest. Like Forrest Griffin was famous for having conversations when people would try and lay and pray him. He had a conversation with Dan Severn a long time ago. He wrote about it in his book.
Yeah.
It's pretty good stuff.
Well, speaking of conversation during a fight, I mean, Kevin Holland was fighting over the weekend against Wonderboy. We're going to get to that. And I actually was thinking that your stat of the week was going to be about that fight.
I wish it could have been.
Because I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it was the first time Kevin Holland had been knocked down. Just the closing seconds of the fourth and final round of that bout, if I'm not mistaken. So
I don't think here's the fun. I don't think UFC stats gave him a knockdown.
They didn't consider that a knockdown.
It is the first time he has been knocked out because of TKO corner stoppage, but they did not issue that a knockdown.
Really?
Wow, that's
yeah.
I mean, what's the criteria? Good Lord. All right, well, let's go ahead and keep things pushing, because as much as we do want to talk about Wonderboy and Kevin Holland, as I said before, we will get to that, but that's not the biggest story. The biggest story by far in the sport of mixed martial arts, and really in all of combat sports right now, is the continued unraveling of the betting empire of one James Krause. He has now been temporarily blacklisted from the UFC as a coach. I mean, obviously he's retired as a fighter, but Glory MMA, a prominent team on the UFC roster, any fighter associated with James Krause will temporarily not be allowed to compete. We had one exception made over this weekend, just because it was at the 11th hour that this happened. Um,
And he got his clock cleaned, and he needed
Yes.
a coach in there. You could tell he was rudderless.
right.
Marcelo Rojo.
It sort of reminded me of when Ryan Couture was kind of left with this UFC contract when his father was blacklisted from the promotion, and he's out there sort of without that main voice that's kind of guided him through his career. So, unfortunate situation for him. But fellas, is this the worst that's yet to come? I mean, we've got Ontario joining the list of athletic commissions that are pretty much restricting James Krause and his fighters. We've got multiple sports books around the world even that are shutting down any betting on the UFC or betting on fights that he's linked to. There has been rumors that the FBI has been contacted via the Nevada Athletic Commission. Are Derek Minner and James Krause just scapegoats here, or we are about to uncover something a lot deeper and a lot less savory?
There's a little bit of both here. I mean, I made the comment a week or two ago, like, watch for the UFC to just decapitate James Krause and pretend as though he was the one bad actor, the problem is solved. Because the UFC's prime driver in this is to maintain public trust and not scare away betting. Like we've said it a million times on the show, they really, really want you to bet on their product. They have a fairly new agreement in place with DraftKings that pays them $350 million over 5 years. I mean, think of what a big deal was made out of the Reebok deal, and then understand that this is like several times larger than that. So there's that, but that's obviously that's bullshit. Like, nobody has one cockroach. If you see a cockroach on your floor, you have 1,000 cockroaches. James Krause is simply the most visible example of something that's probably pretty pervasive. And I'm speaking very, very carefully here because I don't want to accidentally implicate anybody in particular. But you know what he is? James Krause is Martin Shkreli. You remember Martin Shkreli, the guy that made all the news, just being the face of like just pharmaceutical profiteering dickery. Exactly. Tons of people were doing what Martin Shkreli did. Tons of people still are doing what he did. It's still the thing Bernie Sanders is most angry about, and that's saying something. It's a hell of a list. But what did Martin Shkreli do? He was brazen. Yeah. He had a face that just made you want to punch something, and he disrespected the Wu-Tang. And so he got pilloried for it, but the problem kept going.
Yes.
That's James Krause. Because James Krause blew up his own spot in an incredibly just stupid way. And I'm not saying I wish he had kept quiet and just continued to corrupt the sport. I'm just saying I'm surprised that he didn't keep quiet and continue to corrupt the sport, because he was in a situation where he could see that smoke was starting to seep out of like the corners of his windows and under the doors. Like, attention was starting to come to this. People were starting to talk, and he's still just, running his Discord channel, publicly talking about betting and about like running betting. It's mind-bogglingly stupid. So yeah, like there's a little bit of this is a James Krause problem. There's a little bit of this is a systemic problem that James Krause simply chose to kind of throw himself on the fire and highlight for everybody.
Jay, just follow with you on this one here. If you are a coach or in the UFC, if you're a training partner, if you're anyone who's connected that would kind of fall into that code of conduct that everyone was reminded of just before we had the Dillashaw Aljo quote unquote fight. Are you nervous right now?
I think that everybody involved had reason to be nervous when the UFC enacted the policy, because I mean, what before the UFC, the policy I'm referring to was, of course, that fighters, coaches, anybody involved and directly connected and closely connected to the fighters cannot bet on any fight. That was not a policy the UFC had implemented. That was a policy that certain gaming commissions around the world had. Like, you might find New Jersey for example, you may not have been able to bet on your fights or something like that. But it was only limited to gaming commissions, not athletic commissions necessarily. There's some that are the same. Like, for instance, Arizona is the Department of Gaming, which runs gambling, which runs horse racing, which runs boxing and MMA in one big unit. So it's a big overarching commission. But there are others that are, the gaming commission will make this decision. The athletic commission will have something else to go on. So it had basically been limited to sporadic states. And then fighters could easily, or individuals could get around that by placing bets in other states, by using offshore books, by anything like that. So the regulation was a scary problem. So I think that everybody involved that has a significant stake in the gambling process, in fighting and in coaching, whatever, should be sweating it right now. Now, with the ones that should be really concerned are the ones that had any potential appearance of impropriety. If they ever bet against certain fighters in a certain way, if they made fight day bets, which is all tracked, it's all recorded, it's all out there. There's something that, this is according to Josh Thompson, so this is not something I'm bringing up. Josh Thompson was explaining.
Hey, Jay, just do your fucking job and repeat what Josh Thompson said.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. That James Krause's equipment, all of his server or computers or his phones, his laptops, any of his devices that had access to the internet basically, has been seized and is under investigation, which, by the way, is a federal crime if what they're suspecting is happening. This is RICO territory. This is insider trading. This is federal hard jail time that could be very possible if that investigation pans out and this is the way they're looking, which is entirely possible. When it comes to these situations, the steps taken by, for example, Ontario, the AGOC, alcohol gaming, to ban all betting on the UFC. That's not just a light haha kind of a little Wednesday throwaway decision, because the Gaming Commission makes a significant amount of revenue from the sports books and the regulation and fees and taxes and what have you from the books, from the people that are betting. So to ban this means that the commission itself, the commission or government entity, is actually losing money and taking away from itself by making this decision, which means that they're not screwing around here. Like this. I'm not going to go sky is falling territory. I'm not going to run around like my hair's on fire. But we're in, what did that moron say? We're in DEFCON 3 mode, I think. We're in. There's more than smoke right now. New Jersey, which is East Coast Las Vegas, wouldn't say, Glory MMA fighters, we can't bet on you anymore, unless there were a very distinct reason. Like it can be painted as there's an ongoing investigation. Let's hang on until all the facts come out. That's not what this is. We're way beyond that now. And I'm concerned for our sport because what Ben said, this is not the kind of situation where there is one individual actor that has been, this is not a one bad apple situation.
James Krause is not Kaiser fucking Soze.
No.
Yeah.
They're according to rumor and conversation and chatter, there are multiple fights across multiple months and possibly years that are under investigation right now. UFC fights. So this ain't just Derek Minner, Shailan. Like, that's the one that might have been the catalyst, but this is the straw that broke the camel's back. This is all the other terms you want to use to describe it. So yeah, buckle up, buckaroos, because this isn't
going away.
No, and if the possibility that Krause is cleared, say we couldn't find any malfeasance or whatever, do you think things are going to be good? They blacklisted the guy. Jeff Molina is already out of his fight in January. He was going to fight Jimmy Flick, who retired and then said, nah, I'm not retiring anymore. Brandon Moreno is a James Krause loyalist. He is fighting for the title in a month and a half. And he is a very, I'm still on Team Glory MMA mode. Well, he can't fight if that's the case. And UFC Rio doesn't have a main event yet. So we got some issues to find out what's going to happen here.
Absolutely. I think the fact that, Jay, as you mentioned, the gaming commissions, shutting down UFC betting, like how monumental that is.
All
like
UFC
this is not saying like Gladiator FC.
Right.
It's like we're not taking bets on that, or Explode Fight Challenge, or one of those promotions that propped up guys, or off of the wins of someone that was 0-10 or something like that. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about literally the worldwide leader in mixed martial arts, a sport that is attracting billions upon billions of dollars in television contracts, in sponsorships, in pretty much every facet of the business, and has become the go-to like UFC is synonymous to MMA, like Band-Aid is to bandages. Like that's the level that they're shutting things down at. So this is very, very serious. And gentlemen, am I exaggerating when I say that this is probably the greatest threat to the UFC business structure as we know it right now? I mean, is this not something that makes things like the Ali Act a more likely thing? Is this not something that can threaten the independent contractor status of fighters and coaches? Like, this is something, if the UFC is going to have to regulate this, that means they've got to change the way they do things.
Yes. This isn't going to kill mixed martial arts.
Right.
This isn't even going to kill the UFC. The UFC will be a going concern 5 years from now, and its bottom line will probably be bigger than it is now. What it is, this is going to be a transformative moment.
Yes.
The way the UFC does business is going to be very different at the end of 2023 than it is right now, in ways that I can't even really project. Like, that's more down the lines of your, John Nash, Pat Auger to talk about. But the way things currently go, it simply isn't going to work, because like the UFC's first effort, like, okay, James Krause can't corner fighters anymore. And then their second attempt, okay, James Krause is banned, and anyone that trains with him is banned. These are like, it's like trying to eat soup with a fork. It's not like these aren't NFL or NBA teams.
Right.
Training is so nebulous. Like this week at UFC 282, TJ Brown's going to fight. He trains at Glory MMA. He also trains
it's like West Side in Arkansas.
Yeah, with Rolly Delgado in Arkansas.
Yeah.
He started splitting his camps, but apparently he's not enough of a Glory MMA fighter that he can't fight this weekend. A lot of fighters train at multiple camps. In Las Vegas, it's almost the default. You train at Extreme Couture. You go to One Kick Nick for a couple of sessions. You do your strength and conditioning at the PI. Can you imagine if you tried to ban one gym in Vegas? So everything the UFC is trying right now is like putting Band-Aids on a shotgun wound. Like it's not practicable. It's not going to work. There are going to have to be fundamental changes in the way the UFC works. So yeah, we're on the cusp of a transformative moment in the sport.
There's something else that's interesting that's going on. I've been tracking this because I genuinely wanted to know the answer. And Duffy and I were talking about this past week. James Krause runs an organization, an MMA organization called FAC, Fighting Alliance Championship, based out of Missouri, of course. And it's had like, 12.5 fight cards, give or take, going on. It's not bad. There's many fighters who made their way. It used to be KCFA, Kansas City Fighting Alliances, so there are some UFC talents that have cut their teeth there. Well, FAC was signed to UFC Fight Pass, had been running events on there for a while now. And there was concern, what are they going to do with this event? Because Krause is connected. Krause is the promoter. He's the organizer. He's the guy who's running the show. He trains. I'm sure he trains guys that then compete at these events against opponents. Which whatever. We'll skip past that one because that's it is what it is, I guess. Well, as of Friday, FAC right on Fight Pass, no big deal, just operating just fine. Well, it's Monday. You know it's off the schedule. You know what link you can no longer find? If the one that I actually sent to you directly, Ben Duffy, that link is dead now because FAC has been removed from Fight Pass. So the UFC kicked James Krause's organization off of Fight Pass. That's not for nothing. Like, that has nothing to do with the other part, the other, UFC fight card. That is they were doing business with James Krause, and now they're not.
That's a scorched earth moment right there.
Yes, exactly.
That's
what it is.
You think about what like UFC Fight Pass was, propping up Invicta while the UFC was actually gutting the organization multiple times. They still kept it on Fight Pass, up until that deal ran out. Like, to literally just strip it from any mention and everything, that means a whole lot.
And the event's still going on, so it isn't like it was canceled or anything like that. It's just
not going to be on Fight Pass
from Friday to Monday. Somebody decided to pull it off of Fight Pass, and
it makes all the sense in the world if you are the UFC to do that. Like, how much was how many Fight Pass subscriptions were based on people watching James Krause's sort of sideshow promotion?
Like
not
4.5.
Yeah, not to discredit the promotion itself as a sideshow, but in comparison to the other products that are offered, like certainly not cracking the top 15 of what people tune to Fight Pass for. So yeah, from an optic standpoint, because I'm sure Fight Pass and the UFC, the fight promotion, are separate business entities, and they've got things shielded appropriately. But just for PR sake, you might not want to have the letters UFC anywhere near the name James Krause right now. So sounds like they're just playing the PR game. But obviously this story is not going anywhere. Obviously it is running very deep as far as the implications of it, and we will keep on talking about it as more things develop. But gentlemen, let's keep things pushing here, because we do want to briefly brush over UFC Orlando. A return to the road for UFC Fight Night. We don't see that happen too much. And because they went on the road, they had to sell tickets. So you got some action matchups, you got some names that you cared about. But of course, fellas, let's just start it off. What was your biggest takeaway from this whole event?
My biggest takeaway, it's not an individual fight like I was going to originally plan it. It's that the UFC needed this. They needed this 17,000 people inside the Amway Center chanting Guida. They needed the moments. They needed the cancer memorials. They needed the touching tributes. They needed the fans. They needed the volume. They needed the interest. This is something that basically had only been around for pay-per-views. And were there any other major fight nights that I can't think of a ton? There have probably been some that were scooting around, like, the one in Paris, duh. But the fact that I am struggling with this, a couple London cards, the
first
Paris
London card. That's
pretty, maybe, that's it. I think London's and Paris, and now Orlando. The UFC needed this. They needed the intensity, the excitement. It was a different event. It turned this event from a B+ to an A-. It didn't shed us of the Mark Jacasey fight and the 5 straight decisions that weren't all thrilling. But my gosh, guys, it ended with a bang. It ended with 7 bangs.
I don't even think Mark Jacasey was there. I think they just threw Natan Levy out there again and just changed the filter on the camera.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go from that. All right, gentlemen, so let's get into some talk about this main event. Recency bias is definitely a thing, but is Stephen Thompson and Kevin Holland your fight of the year?
Take this one, Duffy.
No, it's in my top 5. If I think about it hard, it might be in my top 3. But you know what? If after the way it was going, it ended with Kevin Holland just icing Stephen Thompson out of nowhere, then all of a sudden it's Prochazka versus Teixeira. Instead, it was a great fight with great moments where the boulder was rolling downhill one way and it only picked up speed as it went along. I mean, still a great fight. One I'll probably just rewatch for enjoyment as opposed to ones that I'll never watch again except for like tape study. Great fight, you know. But yeah, not my fight of the year.
Jay, is it your fight of the year or is it coming in close?
It was on Saturday night, and now it's not. Seriously, I mean that. I as a long time, grew up karate guy.
Of course.
I don't have fans in the. I always make sure to hold on to that and keep that to the vest. But there's always been some sort of affinity I had towards Stephen Thompson, and to see him still do that now was a good moment. And the performance was exactly the kind of performance that I thought it was going to be. Like I knew that it was going to be a Flores lava. I didn't know to the extent it was going to be a Flores lava. We're going to talk about that. My gosh, we're going to talk about that. But it was the striker's delight it promised, and that was a special thing. But it didn't have the one major thing. Like you think of your best fights ever, and you have a couple check boxes in your head of what does it take to cross that threshold, and momentum swings can be a big one for me, that it isn't just one-way traffic. And it was a great round one for Kevin Holland, and then the builder, apparently that is Stephen Thompson, did what he needed to do and kept speeding things up, and Holland slowed down. But while the first two rounds especially were just inject this into my veins type of combat. But yeah, it's probably top three. I think it's going to be above like Shemaya Burns for me, but it's just, I don't know if I can pass Yuri or Yeezy Prochaska or Yeezy Prohaska or Yeehy. I don't know. Prohaska to share.
Be careful
ask Luke Thomas.
Just be careful saying the word Yeezy.
I know.
Tom Levy might come at you. Okay. So be very careful with that. But it's definitely high up on my list. I'd probably say in my top three off the top of my head, but it doesn't go above Yuri and Glover for me for one reason, Jay, that you did mention, kind of brush over the checklist. And for me, typically my fight of the year checks the boxes of having extended sequences in all ranges of combat.
That's a good one.
While the striking delight is fantastic, I have more of a striking back. I'm much better striker than I'm grappler. Like my background is 90% striking. I enjoy that as that part of me as a martial artist. But when I want to see mixed martial arts, I want to see mixed martial arts. Striker's delight is beautiful, but it doesn't compare to a striker's delight plus a grappler's delight, plus extended clinch work, plus momentum swings. Like Glover and Yuri had it all with a title on the line.
Yes.
And then also to
Stakes.
the ending, like the stakes. And I will say that I am very happy the fight ended the way it did, with Holland's corner just throwing in the towel, something that needs to happen a lot more in mixed martial arts.
That corner has a name.
Yes, it
Much
does.
respect to Crew Bob Perez.
Absolutely. They did a fantastic job protecting their fighter and looking after him when he was too much of a fighter to look after himself.
Can you think of the last time a fight has ended by corner stoppage at the end of the fourth round? There's a very famous quote that I'll hint on it. To the death.
Though there you go. BJ Penn versus George St. Pierre too.
That's the last one.
2009.
Something like that, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that's the point. It's been 13 years since that kind of thing has happened, because even though there have been fights that could have ended, let's send Raquel Pennington out for round 5. She'll change things against Amanda Nunes, we know, as her nose gets knocked into the third row.
Yeah, like that was great on their part, but as far as the ending of a fight, when you're looking at fight of the year for the most entertaining sequence, it's anticlimactic when it ends between rounds. As much as that's what we need to see more often, that was anticlimactic when you look at a last second submission in a fight that the winner was probably going to lose had he not pulled that move off. So
had he lamped him had Thompson lamped Holland with a spinning wheel kick, like he almost did.
Yeah.
Then we're talking dramatic knockout, rare dramatic knockout.
Yeah, we might be talking about a 1A, 1B situation with that being a clear 1B, but it still didn't have the other ranges of combat.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, gentlemen, do we think?
Hold on, what you got something, Dovey?
I'm just thinking, man, less than 3 years ago. Yeah, around three years ago. Teixeira versus Smith. Was there ever a fight that needed to be stopped at the end of the fourth round?
Oh, yeah.
Between the fourth and fifth? Like a man is sitting on the stool saying, my teeth are falling out. And they send him out for another 67 seconds.
I'm sorry, Anthony. It's only
where was the adult in that room?
Yeah. That's
yeah.
That's typical. I mean, and especially to juxtapose that with the stoppage that we got in the major boxing event this weekend, Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora. Granted, that fight should not have gone to the 10th round. It was not competitive at all past like the second or third or something like that. But at least the ref, while the corner failed Chisora, at least the ref didn't wait for him to be unconscious and slumped over and drool coming out of his mouth before calling it. So we need to see this happen more in mixed martial arts. We need to have corners stopping the fights to protect their fighters, to let them live the fight another day. Of course, that opens up the door for fighter pay conversations and everything else that we won't get into right now because we've gotten to it a lot, and I'm sure we'll go down that rabbit hole once again in the near future. But Jay, I'm gonna throw one at you. Do you think Kevin Holland gave the fight away?
Ooh, yes, I do. I think he could have won this fight had he done what he was so easily able to do. He tackled wasn't even a double. Like I was when I was writing the play-by-play for Sherdog, I wasn't sure what to call the maneuver that Kevin Holland used to ground Stephen Thompson in the middle of the cage both times, by the way. It wasn't a double. It wasn't a single. One of them was almost like an incidental contact, but it was actually a takedown that kind of scored. And Holland got up and said, no, I don't want it. That first time that Kevin Holland did this is going to be a controversial thing I'm going to say. That was my belief that Kevin Holland does not have any interest in being the UFC champion ever. Because the pressure, the whatever whatever intangibles or psychological aspects that go into it, he had no interest in that because he so easily grounded and took away the most dangerous thing, the only thing that could hurt him. And he was in the 3 seconds he was on top of Thompson. There was nothing Thompson was doing. He wasn't posting. He wasn't shifting his hips. He wasn't bucking. He wasn't doing anything. He was going to be on the ground for the next 4 minutes with no way up, taking damage. So for Kevin Holland to actually abandon the grappling in any kind, yes, Bushido, noble, awesome. I love it. But no, this isn't kickboxing. This is MMA. And for Kevin Holland, in that instance, believed I would rather have an interesting loss than a not interesting win. And I want to applaud that, but I can't. Because he had the clearest, obvious path to victory and actively chose against it. Which made me, I don't want to go so far as to say what I'm going to say, but fights have been fixed with less intelligent strategies. Like to intentionally avoid the one thing that you're going to do to win this fight.
Fights have been fixed that way. Think no further than the fall of Kimbo Slice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did Seth Petrozelli say afterwards? They came and offered me money, not to throw the fight, but simply to agree not to take him down.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Elite XC was willing to just throw the dice on that. Just don't take him down, and we'll take our chances with that.
But you know what? I wouldn't go that far with Kevin Holland. I do agree with you. The display of fight IQ was totally non-existent. But this is on brand for him. This is the same guy who has made a regular habit of chasing down shoplifters and carjackers and everything else, and posting it to Instagram and all the other crazy stuff. This guy has full-on conversations with people outside of the cage while he's getting beat up. You know, this is a guy who fight IQ is not a thing for him. His presence is the thing. His presence is the entertainment. I think that is very foolish, especially when half of your paycheck is connected to you winning. I don't think that I'm not sure what his pay is. I haven't looked up numbers. I don't even remember if Florida disclose his pay exactly, but I'm sure the 50 grand bonus wouldn't equate to, you know, the other half of the paycheck for him. So it's not a financial decision. This is just how he thinks. I do think that he was having success in the striking with that right hand that was broken. I mean, he was landing some thunder on Wonderboy until that hand broke. Yep. You know, and then at that point, did he feel his grip was too compromised to attempt more takedowns? Was he at that point just so into the stand up and bang mentality that he couldn't shift out of it? I don't know, but I'm not surprised that Kevin Holland would be the one like this to do this, because you talk about a golden opportunity. You took him down, and Thompson literally offered nothing off of his back to close out that first round.
It was in the center of the cage, so there's no wall walking.
There was literally nothing that, like you said, the Wonderboy was doing to reverse that situation or to make it better or anything. I believe that Holland could have done that at any point. Remember last week I did say Kevin Holland's takedown game is very sneaky. It's something that you may not be thinking of, but he can land it on you if he needs to. He just chose not to do it. But it's like, man, you're fighting a stylistically favorable matchup if you employ this part of your game against a guy who's ranked, I think he was ranked number 5 going into this,
by at worst 7.
I mean, you're talking about probably at the very least a top 10 spot, if not top 5, if you defeat Wonderboy in a main event, a statement making opportunity right there. Just, I don't know. This is on brand for Kevin Holland, but what a dubious brand to have at this moment.
He did make a statement. And I mean, I agree with you, Ant. Like, I don't think there's anything legitimately corrupt about this. Like the old cliche, never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence. It's that. And I agree with Jay. Like, he made a statement, and that statement is, I'm more interested in having fun fights and having fun and maybe picking up some bonuses than actually making a run at the title. And frankly, he made that statement as soon as he moved to welterweight. Because welterweight, there is a roadblock of people that he does not want to fight. I'm not saying he's scared. I'm just saying he does not want to fight them. He's explicitly said, I'd rather go box Jake Paul than fight grapplers. And guess what that block of 5 people at the top of the division looks like? You know, like, ask RDA. So yeah, like, and that's not the end of the world.
Right.
You know, there's 600 fighters in the UFC, and there are 12 champs? Not everybody can be a champ. And if you're going to be just a top 10 through 15 guy, why not be a fun one that everybody loves? I'm here for it.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. I'm not crying that there was a fix or anything. I'm saying that the actions taken were deliberate. It was, and I'm also going to push back a little, not entirely what you're saying, but what others have said, Ant, about fight IQ. I don't think it was a fight IQ issue, because it was a conscious decision. It wasn't like I've got this guy hurt with leg kicks, I'm not going to throw them right now because my shin's sore too. And you're like, why are you doing this, Jose Aldo? Throw 3 more leg kicks and you've won this fight. It wasn't like that. It was an actual decision to go, I could win here, but I want to roll the dice in a different way. And to me, that, I don't know, I didn't feel good about it. Because yes, he had success until his hand shattered. I don't know if you saw Wonderboy on the MMA Hour, his left hand is a balloon. You know, it looks kind of like you're running on JHX's forehead. It's big, puffy. And so everybody was hurt. Everybody was having a bad time. But when you break your hand, well, Uriah Faber proved, just throw elbows, moron. But it just felt it felt weird. Like, seriously, the second time he got the takedown, after Wonderboy was starting to ramp up, he was landing more effectively, more volume, more damage. He was starting to get his attention. Like that leaping left hand he was getting on Holland, that Holland shook off. He couldn't shake it off anymore. So Holland gets that collision into a takedown, the second one. as Kevin Holland is losing, the fight is fading away. He's broken-handed and decides to get back up. I didn't feel good about that because, yes, fine, exciting, hoorah, rah, rah, rah. But you're winning. The end goal is to win the fights. Kevin Holland, had he won the fight, even won a decision, say he rode out 3 rounds and got easy takedowns, got some ground and pound, it wasn't crazy impressive, voila, he's a top 10 guy. You know how much more money he's going to make? A lot. There are contracts that have rankings provisions. So remember when I always talk about how rankings actually really do matter? There are provisions in certain contracts, not all of them, certain contracts that if you reach a certain ranking, your pay will go up X quantity or X percent or X whatever. So Kevin Holland, this is like a turkey of the month or the turkey of the year kind of situation to actively sabotage his own paycheck. Like if his idea is I'm going to make it back in post-fight bonuses, well, he's probably not. Kevin Holland makes a good amount of money. He's a draw, or at least the UFC treats him as one. And he's a high-level guy, or at least the UFC treats him as one. But you got to win fights. You got to win the fights that matter. Tim Means is an excellent opponent, and he hit him with a dart stroke. Great, awesome. But when this opportunity strikes, you can't actively give it away. And I feel that Kevin Holland, whatever decision he made, I don't know, was the wrong one, I guess.
I mean, when it comes time to negotiate his contract again, which I don't know what his contract status is now, but when he sits down across from Hunter Campbell and Dana, whoever else is going to be talking to him about what his pay scale will be offered, on the next go around of fights, this is marked as a loss.
Yes.
This is something that's used against you.
A stoppage loss. Yes.
Like you were finished. And you didn't crack the top 10. So, I really think he shot himself in the foot here, much to our entertainment, because like we said before, this is a very entertaining fight, but self-preservation should mean something here. I don't know. But what do I know? I'm just a bum in my office here, just yelling into a microphone. What do I know? All right, gentlemen. So we did have some other notable backs. I mean, the whole main card was top to bottom incredible. One of the stars of said main card got himself a 58-second or 57-second win over Tai Tuivasa. Sergei Pavlovich, Sergei Pavlovich. Gentlemen, are we looking at the newest heavyweight contender?
Yes. And for Sergei Pavlovich, losing his UFC debut to Alistair Overeem is the best thing that could possibly have happened to him.
Absolutely.
Because he arrived in the UFC around the same time as the rest of this kind of youth movement that arrived in 2017, 2018, 2019, just alongside the Cyril Gans, the Tanner Boser, Chris Daukaus, Tom Aspinall. And if he had beaten Overeem, probably would have made it to a title shot already.
Yeah.
Been too much too soon, gets lamped by Francis Ngannou. It's been better for him because he has been absolutely dominant ever since, and he's risen up a very logical scale of competition, and he's gotten a chance to develop and refine his craft in the cage that very few red hot heavyweights get to. It's just such a thin division that anyone who wins, I used to joke, anyone who wins 4 fights in a row is fighting for a title. That was true when I said it in 2018. It's not true anymore. The UFC heavyweight division is right now the healthiest it has ever been. Like, period, ever. Like, since its inception, since 1997 or whenever. Like, yeah. That's saying a lot, but it's still thin. But he is absolutely at the very least, a future title challenger. I mean, he could be that next year, but quite possibly a champ. And he's not a perfect fighter. There are limitations to his game that will be exposed by some of the people that are ahead of him on the ladder. There are things that Curtis Blaydes can do to this man. There are things that Cyril Gane can do to this man. There's certainly things that, for instance, Ngannou basically has a rocket launcher like over his shoulder. There's always something.
Ngannou can do to a rhino.
Yeah, like that. But I want to see it now because he was a very Russian heavyweight when he got to the UFC. Like he lost to Overeem in a predictable way. He's a bad defensive wrestler, and as Lev helpfully pointed out and reminded me, Fight Nights Global is really quick to stand fighters up from the ground.
Yeah,
which means he didn't really have to work on his get up game very much over there. UFC is not gonna stand you up if Alistair Overeem is on you in half guard at the base of the fence, and so he got his fucking face punched in. But he's gotten better about that. Nobody else has even really had a chance to try to shoot a takedown on him. He's just gotten better at managing distance, and from there, his size, the straightness of his punches, and his nasty power that have been everything else he's needed.
Yeah, definitely some exciting stuff. And you know, as a list that I just turned in for MMA on Point, he broke the Derek Lewis curse. After you beat Derek Lewis, you lose your next fight. So he broke that one. So shout out to Pavlovich. Gentlemen, I'm going to grab my clock here and I'm going to put on 10 seconds. We are going to do some quick hits, and I need to make sure that I have the actual like volume on this time, because I don't know why I always screw that up. All right, here we go. We got 10 seconds on the clock. Jay, I'll begin with you.
Shoot.
Kane won a decision on the 1 Prime 5 undercard.
Oh.
So is the Reug Reug experiment over now?
He was on the undercard. I think that tells you everything that you need to know. They were supposed to be harping on this guy, shouting from the rooftops. If give him buchecha, I want to see him turn into a pretzel.
All right. So Ben, you are up next. How many wins is Matheus Nicolau away from a title shot?
2. Mostly because of timing. There's the stupid 2-man log jam. Pantoja should be next. If they make Pantoja and Nicolau fight each other, they're stupid. So probably 2.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a way to insert a joke about Matt Snell, 1, cutting his hair, and 2, being like a shield for the UFC, but I didn't come up with something in time. So I just made those 2 statements very plain instead. Jay, please ask me something so I don't sound like a crazy person.
I will ask you something so you don't sound like a crazy person. So you watched the One Championship show. You watched Reinier de Ridder, who is the light heavyweight, so 225-pound champion. One does his weight classes, fought against Anatoly Malakin, who was the Russian interim heavyweight champion, who would for 265 moved down to 225 to fight Reinier de Ridder. So, and my question to you, and Reinier de Ridder got his face rearranged in a beatdown of the year type of drubbing. So, and considering how much the One Championship wanted to push Reinier de Ridder, did they do him a disservice by matching him against this guy?
I'll say they didn't do him a disservice. They did themselves a disservice. They did him a service by giving him a highly ranked guy, a guy that meant something in the division. If he won, the sky's the limit. I do want to say this, disrespecting the clock. Did you guys hear when the fight was near the finish and the bell rung before the actual contest ended?
No, I need to go back and.
I'm sorry. Do we have a Montreal screw job going on here?
You know what? I honestly thought it was someone trying to save that man's life, because he was getting beaten down so bad. Gosh. The bell starts ringing, and the fight the ref hadn't called it yet. So I was thinking that, oh my God, like this is like somebody was literally trying to save RDR's life.
Rich Franklin ran and pulled the fire alarm.
Yeah,
everybody out of the Mall Arena.
He's like running with a cup of piss and it's spilling over on his suit as he's rushing to the bell
over his sandals.
Yeah, he like threw a Bible at the bell and stopped it. So that was a beat down.
Now, what have been? Now, would the bell have been to like signal like they're the corner throwing the towel or something, or would it be to try and make it seem like the round's over and then Malakin pulls back for a second?
I wasn't sure what was going on there. I thought like the fight was rightfully being stopped in that moment, and definitely could have been stopped a bit before. But I wasn't really sure what was going on. I'm not remembering what the time on it was, if it was near the end of the round or not, but there was a very clear difference in the bell ringing and the ref actually stopping the fight and then the bell ringing again to officially signal the end.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever is the saint that rang that bell earlier, we appreciate your effort, because good Lord, that was an epic beatdown.
Maybe it was like signaling St. Peter to get ready the gates. We're going to have a
man.
live one coming up real quick for you there, pal.
I was hoping Fan Man would come through and land in the middle of the cage or something, like anything to stop the blatant murder that we were witnessing. All right, fellas. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 minute on the clock that we are most likely going to disrespect. Going back to our stat of the week that you brought up there, Jay.
Hey.
RDA, 8 hours officially of cage time, and he is looking really good lately. Will the wheels fall off before Dos Anjos can make another run at the title?
The sun will exhaust its supply of hydrogen fuel and expand into a red giant, then contract into a white dwarf, and all life on Earth will die out and will turn into a cold, icy husk 2 or 3 billion years from now before Rafael Dos Anjos can make another run at the belt. And it's not about him, because he is 39 years old and he's fighting as well as he ever has. But I mean, unless the sun turning into a red giant kills Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman, it doesn't matter, because they're all younger than Dos Anjos and they're all absolutely miserable style matchups for him. And he can't go back down to 155 anymore and hope he can catch Charles de Bronx on a bad night, because the Islam Makhachev era just started. So he's basically got what it would look like if Covington dropped to 155 waiting for him down there.
Yeah, this to me, this is like I'm thinking of it more as like if there were a 165-pound division started up, then we're talking. If he or if we want to include titles in other promotions and he wants to go and rematch Kevin Lee and Brave or something like that for a 165-pound title, okay. But he's too big to consistently make lightweight and still be competitive, and not to mention the bad style matchups and the horrible style matchups that exist at the top of the welterweight division, which drove him back to the lightweight division in the first place. So yeah, it's a wrap for RDA as a legitimate title contender despite this impressive run. It's
got to be his nightmare that the three guys that not clowned but shut him down are the three guys that are still in the top of it, like 1, 2, and 3 are right there. They haven't gone anywhere since he moved back up and down. Yes, I know. I will disagree to a small point, because Dos Anjos, a former champion, always has a shorter track to a title, and he's already fought those guys, so the UFC can kind of skip those if he gets a sexy win. Well, who's a sexy guy coming off a win from that same fight card? You could see Dos Anjos versus Wonderboy happening, Dos Anjos winning, fighting smart like Kevin Holland could have, and then boom, RDA is a top 5 guy. He fights Gilbert Burns, he gets past Gilbert Burns, which isn't a crazy outcome. He's going for a title. So I think that there is the very distinct opportunity that Dos Anjos fights for an interim championship before it's all over, because the UFC is going to do everything they can to hurt Leon Edwards, which is why I say interim championship.
Well, I mean in some sort of short notice thing, that can make sense, but I don't see them intentionally going for RDA, because RDA was a champion they didn't want in the first place.
That's true. But if he gets Conor and beats Conor, because obviously
now that makes a lot more sense to me. RDA as an opponent for Conor makes a lot of sense to me. It's a fight that Conor probably should avoid, but might want just for his own hubris. And is a terrible style matchup, at least this iteration of Conor. So I could see him in a high profile fight, but not that. Not with a legitimate belt on the line here. So
Rafael Dos Anjos finally getting red panty night in 2023 would be pretty much my favorite thing ever to happen in mixed martial arts.
And you can see it happening. You can see him say Conor's still in the mend. He's doing Roadhouse or whatever he's filming right now, which, by the way, Dustin Poirier, bless you for that brilliant tweet. I don't care about Twitter back and forth, but saying that Conor's finished filming Roadhouse, bless you, sir. But But yeah, you could see like, oh, there's a fresh opponent, there's a fresh face. Fine. If he doesn't get Wonder Boy, give Dos Anjos Masvidal. Then he's a big hotshot name again. And then Conor, boom, title fight or interim title fight or BMC title fight or whatever stupid name you want to call it. I'm just saying it's not over until, I mean, Dos Anjos is going to go for another 4 years. So I think there's something left.
I mean, he still did just get finished by Rafael Fiziev.
Yes.
I've become Brazilian now. I've watched so much MMA. I think so there is still a hard cap on where he's going to go. There's a hard cap, and the sky is going to have to realign itself in quite a ridiculous fashion to pave the way for a title opportunity for him. Which, like I said, only if it's something last minute and he's the one who answers the phone and says yes.
Well, Chimaev will say yes, but he'll actually not be able to make weight. So that's that kind of thing.
Chimaev will clown on Twitter or something.
People like, yeah, I'm ready, and he's 182.
Yeah, and then he'll try to fight someone backstage or something stupid. Oh, that guy. All right, gentlemen. Well, it's time to move on to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, will we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. Oh man, there's some interesting things that we can go on about. And Ben, I'll let you get the floor first. What's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I mean, is it okay if I talk about the Colorado thing?
Please. Absolutely.
All right. One championship. We just finished talking a little bit about the one on Prime Video 5/1 164 doubleheader. One championship just announced. The location and headliner for one on Prime Video 10 that will take place in May. I forget the exact date. I think May 5th, something like that, in Broomfield, Colorado at First Bank Arena. So it's going to be headlined by the rubber match between Demetrius Johnson and Adriano Moraes. Obviously, the rest of the card will fill out as time passes with one's usual mix of MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, grappling. But interesting stuff. I mean, as hard as I am on one championships like foibles and weirdness and shadiness, I do genuinely enjoy the product they put in the cage. And all I want from one championship is to do the fabled run towards regulation. Booking a high stakes main event in a United States state with a reputable athletic commission is a great step towards that. If I were them, I'd be fucking terrified right now because Adriano Moraes is absolutely going to miss weight. He is absolutely going to miss weight and or hydration. The dude looks like a medium lightweight. But that's on them to figure out. Like, either move him to a reasonable weight class and stop making him fight DJ, or stay in Asia and, keep doing things without commission oversight. But I like it. Broomfield, Colorado. It's an intentional choice. It's kind of where it all began. UFC 1, November 1993. That actual venue is no longer standing, but it's close. So I'm surprised, but I've been surprised thus far because the one on Prime Video event so far, they've entrusted so many of the anchor bouts of those to fighters that they had to know were likely to miss weight or hydration. And
most of them did.
And most of them did. That's what I'm saying. Like, a bunch of these events have really gotten winged because of predictable problems with weight and hydration. And a couple of years from now, we will either look at this as one championship as a farce and a house of cards going down in the most predictably hilarious way, or we will see it as the growing pains of the new number 2 promotion in the world. And I'm not particularly rooting for either, but this card in May is going to be a major step towards figuring out which it's going to be. Because one championship is either going to have a triumph here before the fight even takes place, or they're going to show their whole ass.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they even just abandon their hydration system.
It's all coming.
I mean, they say that now. We've got a lot of time to get to May 5th.
I'm trying to remember whether we have another U.S. card between now and then.
a one U.S. card.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
don't believe so. I think this is their debut. This is the first one
US
the
card.
debut. Yeah. But they're going to have different runs at this for their other events to run their hydration tests, to run whatever changes to weight classes they might do. They could do what Pride did when they came over to Vegas, and that was just, okay, we have to go unified rules right now. So that means unified rules for the weight classes. That means no soccer kicks. Everything. They will have to adjust to United States regulation in some way, shape, or form, and maybe this is going to be part of it.
Well, actually, I'm going to do that thing that everybody hates. Well, actually, Colorado has approved all of their rule sets, including the hydration and weigh and testing and that whole situation. It will be open Pride rules or whatever. It'll be scored. Rounds will be scored in the entirety. So, like, this is one championship coming to the U.S.
One championship product coming to the U.S.
There will be Muay Thai little gloves. Like, it's the whole one package that's coming this way.
Whisper sweet nothings in my ear, Jay.
That's exactly my plan. So that is why I'm surprised, Mr. Falcons. Because it's the Colorado, and shout out to Tony Cummings. He's anyway. The whole one package is on. So
this is opening up my brain in other ways here, because my first thought was, okay, they're like, why don't they go to like Texas or Florida or Alabama, just some place where the regulation is a little less, dialed in, and then you can have your room to, you did your US debut, you can run into a potential big city like a Houston or a Dallas or Miami or something like that, and you can get your feet wet in the US with a big market behind you, while still kind of playing around with the rules. Colorado ain't going to play that. So yeah, Colorado is going to be on it. I'm wondering now, is this going to open up, potential rule changes throughout the U.S.?
Now you're thinking the right question, because an American commission has approved Pride rules, fight score in the entirety, different weigh-in protocols that are different from the unified rules. Yeah, this is a whole question. And Ryzen is gunning for Hawaii, which sounds like it very well may approve Pride rules and the entirety of it too. So
just don't debut there on December 7th.
Oh no, they might.
I mean, I talked to Rich Franklin over the summer. Like, I was out in LA when Ant was on vacation. I went out to cover the One Championship Prime announcement press conference, and I kind of buttonholed him for a talk at the end of that. And I asked him, like, what's going to happen when you try to run events in the U.S. and bring your unique rule set and weight and hydration protocols? And he was a little more concerned about the specific rule set. He was less concerned about the weight and hydration, because he's like, our hydration protocols can snap in over top of a promotion's regular weigh-ins, without changing anything. Like, according to the commission, our fighters are still weighing in at this weight, this long before the event, and the fact that we have to, we test their hydration twice, like, it doesn't really affect them at all. So he appears to have been right about that, and if they're willing to embrace this rule set as well, again, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. There's only two ways you can compete with the UFC. You can either just try to emulate what they do as much as possible, or you can underscore the differences. You can try to run a season and playoff system. You can keep doing Grand Prix. You can do like just a kind of exotic rule set. I prefer that other promotions try to underscore the differences than just, turn into bad copies of the UFC. So I like it.
This is great. Like, I'm one to trash one championship for a lot of things, but not today. Hats off for them. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this product is going to look like. And fantastic product. The product itself is always great. Like the Prime event Friday evening, I enjoyed watching every bit of it that I did. Just without the bells and whistles and all the foolishness that we make fun of. And I think coming over to a commission like Colorado, a lot of that foolishness won't necessarily be there. A lot of that foolishness will not be allowed. So there'll be a level of transparency that we've been begging for, and I'm really in for this.
Me too.
All right, Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So you guys were talking about like differences in, I don't know, rule sets and funny different ways that you fight and ways to compete with the UFC. Well, there's an organization, and then there's another organization that are friends now in Japan. Antonio Inoki had a sort of MMA organization, Inoki Genome Federation, which I think is defunct, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. Inoki had a series of year-end events called Bombaye, which were festival fights of all kinds. And there were shoot fights, and there were mixed rules madness and kickboxing, and maybe MMA fixed in there. And Inoki would slap a fool and all the greatness that you could possibly want. Well, Inoki has teamed up, the Inoki organization, of course, rest in peace, Antonio Inoki, has teamed up with Ganryujima, which, as if you might remember, is the moat fighting organization, where there was a moat around the enclosure. They wore modified gi tops, and it was mixed rules, 3x3, sort of ground stuff. It was kind of like a not quite MMA, and it was a whole lot of fun.
More like Sancho.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was in that same vein of a couple things, it was sort of Sambo, sort of Judo, sort of Sancho. All of those things kind of boil into one awkward basket, and moats with a dry ice floating around the moat thing so you could fall in. You ring out 3 times, you lose all that stuff. Well, this event is happening. It's happening on December 28th, and it is teamed up to bring some surprising names, like Galore Bafando, former UFC fighter, who threw, Charlie Ward, through the UFC canvas. Hideki Sakin, Shrek Sakin, is fighting Jan Sokup in I think it's a Ganryujima type fight. So it's going to be mixed rules, that kind of thing. And there's going to be some MMA fights. Well, who did they bring to the table for some of these other fights? Josh Barnett is coming out of retirement to fight Shoma Shibisai, a longtime Ryzen guy. Melvin Manhoef is fighting in MMA against Igor Tanabe. And the breakingest of news today is that Rafael Lovato, former Bellator champion, who retired from brain irregularities and issues and concerns about stroke and all of those other things, is cleared to compete. And he's fighting an 8-0 cat from Shuto. I can't remember his name, so it happens. So, yeah, that is about some of the biggest names that a non-organization can get their hands on. Barnett, Manhoef, Lovato, those are, and Shrek Sakin, hell, he's almost 50, but he's still smashing fools, surprisingly, in Ryzen. So, yeah, this is a mixed rules Mania Madness event, and I cannot wait for it on December 28th. So, yeah, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. Josh Barnett is coming out of retirement to fight a person. And it's not a shoot, and it's not a shoot fight. Well, it's going to be around the moat. It's going to be
but it's going to be a moat.
He's going to throw somebody into a moat. Yeah.
This is fantastic. I can hear him. I can just envision him now throwing someone into the dry ice while like heavy metal is playing in the background.
Yeah.
He's wearing like a cut off t-shirt or something.
Picture Bloodsport when Tiny would throw that guy and be like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, if we have someone doing monkey kung fu, then this is complete.
Dude, let's do it.
Then my dreams have finally come true. Yeah. Gentlemen, I'll go ahead and share I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. I so many things I want to talk about, but I'll just stick with this one. And not mention the fact that Donald Cerrone is getting hair plugs and
good for him.
Yeah, I know. I'm cool with that. I just want to see Donald Cerrone with dreads next year. That's all. I just want to see him with the full on haircut.
He'll look like that one Vanilla Ice album.
Yeah.
Oh,
he should collab with like Chet Hanks or something.
I think I'm going to see Gina Carano or Mike Cernovich or something. Go on.
But we're going to move to the bantamweight division. Now, we are getting reports that it looks like Aljamain Sterling will be defending his belt next against Henry Cejudo. From what I understand, they're targeting March for that. I'm not surprised that Henry Cejudo will be thrown back into the title mix. Supposedly that makes sense. He did, leave the belt behind. But at the same time, man, if you're Aljo, I want that O'Malley money. That just
tough.
That's tough. That's a tough one, but we'll see. They've been Aljo and Cejudo have been jaw jacking at each other now for a couple years. This has been a back and forth with them, so maybe we'll finally get some resolution to that feud that awkwardly played out on the sidelines of PFL last weekend.
Does the UFC think that Cejudo's a draw?
I'd imagine they have to stack it with a different main event. I don't see him being a draw. Aljo is not a draw.
Like people like straight up, regardless of his achievements, accomplishments, people have forgotten about Cejudo because all he's done is post awkward Instagram things, and fans don't care about that. You know, we're the only ones who seem to.
Yeah, he wasn't a guy who courted a lot of fan support in general. Like the way he won the title was heavily debated and disputed. Granted, the TJ win was fantastic for him, and the Marlon Moraes win. They great wins, but it didn't really seem like it translated into much other than praise from guys like us. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the fact that these two have some sort of actual conflict, I'm sure that's going to be leaned upon in the promotion. If this is true, because they could very well get to the negotiating table and this not get finalized and O'Malley get pushed through or whatever the case may be. So
that's when the UFC is going to unveil its 5-year agreement with Burger King, and they're going to fight for the BK crown. Like he's been foreshadowing this for several years now. You thought he was just wearing that stupid plastic crown, around his Instagram for amusement value, but no, he's sending some subliminals.
Like he's trying to beat the Burger King,
and they're gonna
Burger King.
And he's looked like the Burger King since he's been out of active competition. So
if not the Bagel Boss, yes,
yeah.
Well, they're gonna.
God, I forgot about that guy. Bagel Boss, former training partner of Aljo, actually.
Oh my gosh. At that rate, they should just get rid of the U and call it the BKFC Championship.
Yeah,
I think that's already taken. And Feldman's like, "Shit, why did they?"
Yeah. Yeah, he's like kicking the computer over right now. Son of a bitch.
What's up, Dave?
And now the bonuses are going to be double Whopper meals.
Double Whopper bonuses.
Yeah, but the cheese comes out of your paycheck if you upgrade the cheese.
Or at the end of the thing, like how Mitch Shelton does, you're gonna get 50,000. You're gonna get some extra cheese tonight, buddy. Yeah. And when you're giving them the bonuses,
or they give them like a huge oversized check, but it's kind of like greasy and translucent in a couple of places, like a Burger King bag.
Like they're gonna, but the double cheese, like you got to make sure you got one slice flat, and then you put the other slice the other way, so the corners are all different, so it looks like a Star of David or something.
Oh yeah.
How do they get Hamburglar in the cage though? His head won't fit.
It's the wrong franchise.
That's McDonald's, you fool.
What is the Burger King mascot then?
It's the Burger King.
Oh yeah.
So
I thought he retired.
The creepy guy with the mask. And
my god. Yeah. Dude, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like the creepiest looking mask. Like it looks like it's made of porcelain or something.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm back.
It's like he's gonna, like his face is gonna crack off or whatever. But anyway,
my bad commenters below. My bad.
Before we go down the fast food rabbit hole, because the West Coast has a different fast food scene, and I would love to catch you guys up on it if you're not already aware. But we've got
In and Out, huh?
It's overrated. The fries suck it in it.
I had a fat burger when I was out there. Yeah.
That burger's though. The fries at In and Out are absolute trash. The burgers are great.
You might get flamed in the comments there, buddy.
It's a love or hate. If you love to be reminded that your fries are actually made of potatoes, then you're gonna love In and Out's fries. If you think of them as a completely separate animal vegetable kingdom,
a food group.
Yeah.
Like a sovereign
In and Out fries. Not the business.
Why does this taste like potatoes?
It's like, what is this, vegetable?
Vile weed.
Oh my god. Well, while we'll be stuffing our faces with whatever fast food we are stuck to with our geographic regions here, we'll be watching UFC 282, the final pay-per-view that the UFC will be offering in the year of 2022, fellas. We just had a shakeup. I don't even think Tapology has updated this. Right before we hit record, they hadn't updated it yet, but looks like Robbie Lawler. Yep, Sure Dog has. Robbie Lawler out with an injury, so the matchup against Santiago Ponzinibbio is off. We do have a couple people that are trying to get added to the card, and O'Brien Barberina was on Twitter stating his case. I think, Jay, I think you said Randy Brown.
He was trying to, yeah.
Yeah, was
Nothing
trying to
yet.
as well. Yeah, nothing yet. So I'm sure by the time we upload this and everything, this will all be resolved. But as of now, we don't have anything to talk about as far as Santiago Ponzinibbio's potential opponent, if there will be any. So instead, we're going to turn our attention to Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Jay, who you got?
I want you guys to answer me a question, and it's a sincere question, even if it sounds really, really mean. What is Darren Till good at? What is his area of expertise? What is he is a
Twitter.
blank. Yes, fine. He is like Bruce Buffer announces his style. What is he? He's not a brawler. He's not a striker. He's not a wrestler or a submission artist. He's not even well-rounded. So you could be like, well, he's the new breed of well-rounded. Even that's a stretch.
He's sort of, I don't want to, at the risk of sounding mean, he's like a mediocre generalist, and not even much to offer on the ground either. I don't. Honestly, I don't know.
He's big and he's strong. This isn't a trick question. I'm actually, I've been really chewing on this for a while. He's big and he's big. He's burly. That's like the gorilla nickname works for him because he has long arms. He has good reach, but he doesn't always use it. So, and he doesn't have, power like you'd really think. Okay, fine. He got Donald Cerrone, the skeleton of Donald Cerrone out of there. And that's the last knockout he's gotten in 8 years, 7 years. I don't know. And this is on purpose because I know what the hell Dricus du Plessis is. He is a glass cannon that is coming out of his corner like his hair is on fire, his house is on fire, his baby's on fire. He is rushing at you at 155%. And son of a gun, if you don't stop him in his tracks like Roberto Soldic or catch him awkwardly when he was very immature like Gareth McClellan, you're not going to be able to stop this guy. And I see him running over Darren Till. I see Darren Till. They're the same size. Like Darren Till is my height, so he's not like a giant middleweight. You think of big middleweights like 6'3", 6'4". He's not. He's 6 feet tall, so he's not he doesn't even have that size to push him over the edge. Which is again why I question you guys and what the hell Darren Till is good at, because I don't know. He's good at stopping things. He's a great nullifier. I think that might be a good way of describing him. He's not going to get taken down a lot. He's not going to get outstruck a lot. A couple people scored the fight with Robert Whitaker for Till because it was, low output, back and forth kind of thing. But I don't think I did. But the point is he's good at shutting people down. And that's not going to work against Dricus du Plessis. Brad Tavares held on just by a thread. He was bloodied and ruined at the end of that fight. Tavares was. And Tavares is a blood and guts. You're going to have to, hit him with a steel chair pretty much to put him out of the fight unless you punt him in the head what Edmund did to him. Yeah, give me Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to say second round knockout, just an absolute bulldozing, because I don't know what Darren Till can do in this fight.
Darren Till is really, at welterweight, he's really good at being huge. I still think he's the biggest welterweight that's ever competed at a high level. He's not the tallest, doesn't have the longest arms, but he might have been the heaviest in the cage on Fight Night. Well,
bigger than Rumble?
In the same way that Rumble, very similar.
Hulking.
Because most guys that are, quote, big for the weight class, they accomplish it by having skinny legs. Whether you're talking about John Jones going all the way back to Tito Ortiz, that wasn't Till. Till had thick legs. He has broad shoulders. He's just a big dude. That goes away at 185. At 185, he's just another guy. And I agree with Jay. If I had to do the little 3-point thing that the UFC used to put up in the early 2000s, I'd be he certainly self-identifies as a Muay Thai striker, decent power and everything, hard kicks, serious vulnerabilities on the feet. Tyron Woodley choked him out, but Tyron Woodley lamped him first. Jorge Masvidal, if you rewatch that fight, that is a niftier striker, just timing and timing and timing. And by the time he threw that 2-punch combo that put him away, he could hit that thing blindfolded. He's like, oh, I got this guy. And just crushed him. That is something that Dricus du Plessis can absolutely do to a man. I mean, Dricus du Plessis was losing to Trevin Giles until he got through with one massive shot. So this could, I mean, it could look like an analog or like an amalgam of du Plessis versus Giles and Till versus Masvidal, where Till looks pretty good the first round, but sooner or later, du Plessis got 3 full rounds to find that button. And the thing is, however great Till might have been, yeah, it's weird to think that he's only 29 and du Plessis is only 28. Yeah. Till feels like 35 years old. He's been fighting once a year for like the last 5 years. Like since the Woodley fight, he's literally averaged a fight per year. And he has a distinctly losing record in those fights. I think Kelvin Gastelum's the only win he has in that space. Like whatever skills he has are eroding. I was kind of surprised that the line was as close as it was. I think du Plessis is going to truck him.
I think du Plessis is going to win this fight. But I don't see it being the absolute railroading, because I think Till is like one of you said, I think Jay, I think you said like he's good at nullifying.
Yeah.
The fights the fights that he lost were more how do I put this? I'll say the Whitaker fight, for instance. That was a fight where he nullified a lot of the good things Whitaker did. Whitaker was able to still get the win, but it wasn't the absolute routing that we kind of thought that Whitaker would be able to employ. Like Till, whether it be the size or whatever the case may be, or just like his ability to slow a fight down when need be, it prevented him from getting finished. I think with Woodley, I think he tried to push a pace, and Woodley responded with that shot that really should have floored him before the choke. And the Gastelum win was a fight where both guys were pretty passive. It was like both guys weren't really doing anything until did just slightly a little bit more, like maybe, Gastelum did a little bit less, and that's the deciding factor in that fight. I think if he can survive the initial, like, because we know du Plessis is going to first round, he's going to come charging guns blazing. If he can survive that and survive that onslaught, which probably lasts a minute and a half or something like that, if he can slow it down, he's got a shot at just surviving. I don't think he comes away with the win, because I don't think there's any one particular area that Till is going to. Come on, man, you really, Don, come on, you come up here. I don't think there's any one area that Till is going to just exploit, but I don't think there's any one area that he can get exploited in. And that could be the difference here. I think an opponent like this against Till at welterweight, I think he gets floored because the weight cut depletes his chin too much. Till's going to take some punishment here, but I think he's going to survive a 3-rounder. Hey, buddy, please put that pin down. All right. Of course, the kids are here. Yeah, that's Daddy's Wu-Tang hat. You can't mess with the Wu-Tang hat. No. Don't mess that up. All right, Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon. Ben, who you got?
I do have Pimblett in this. I think it's a pretty sensible matchup if they're just trying to bring him along and see how far he can really go, like allow his star to rise. I mean, it's a dangerous fight. Gordon's a good grappler. He's a physically strong guy. But, yeah, I expect we're going to get a fun fight with probably a good balance of time spent on the feet as well as on the ground. I don't think Gordon's going to be afraid to go to the ground with Pimblett. Pimblett is never afraid to strike, sometimes to his own detriment. But, yeah, I've come to believe in Pimblett a little bit more. Like, I still don't think he's like a future champ or anything, but he's a guy that, given the right matchmaking, could kind of hang around the outer reaches of the rankings, which would allow the UFC to plausibly put him in main and co-main events. And that's all he really needs. Like, he's a superstar on the rise. Give me Pimblett by decision.
Jay, who you got?
This is another weird situation where I look at the fighter who's the Well, I think he's the underdog. Gordon, yeah, of course, Gordon's the underdog, and Till was the underdog too. Yes, Till. My point is, a fighter that is not favored, that you wonder what his specialty is. I don't know if I could call Jared Gordon a striker. I guess I probably could, of all the attributes, but I do feel he has more of the well-rounded game, even if that is tough to implement because he doesn't have really long reach, and that. For a guy who may be better suited as a striker, I think Paddy's going to outreach him by like 6 inches or something like that. And that's tough for a guy who, and Gordon, who, can fight on the outside, kind of get lazy, kind of lure into a brawl and then try and shoot for a takedown and get bowled over. Like it's a weird situation that Gordon finds himself in, because this is a really good matchup. This is a showcase matchup for Paddy. Like, this is the kind of thing where he can, because Gordon is welcoming the ground exchange. They go to the ground. Paddy beats him in a scramble and taps him out. This is the kind of thing that Jared Gordon's chin is not invincible. And Paddy does hit hard in the first round. And Gordon might try and prove something, because a lot of these guys have that kind of that desire to put this chatty Cathy away. I'm gonna be the one to make a statement on this kid, and that might play into the disadvantage of Gordon. My brain, my everything says Paddy inside the distance, but I'm going to, for no apparent reason, say that Jared Gordon outlasts the worst of the first round, gets like a 10-8.5 first round, rallies to an extent, and wins a split decision where 2 judges think he did enough and 1 judge says no, Paddy won, and the community says that Paddy won, but Jared Gordon wins an ugly decision that nobody agrees he won. So yeah, that's my
Well, that is very specific. Very specific. I like it.
Make it dirty is the word that I think that is going to come up in this fight. Make it dirty.
See, I think that Jared Gordon is the perfect sort of person to put in front of Paddy Pimblett to boost him up on this big of a stage. I just don't see where he has a discernible advantage over Paddy. I think too, of course, Elias knocking my mic over, so I apologize for all the rattling noises that are probably coming through, because this okay.
As Andy's working on that, I will say my question remains as to Paddy's cardio on this stage. I've seen Paddy go 5 rounds with Julian Erosa and beat him, whatever, that we thought about the fight. He won the decision officially, so that's all that matters. But he is very much, Paddy is tiring himself out. His offense is really wearing himself out. Like, he was wiped out at the end of the Jordan Levitt fight. Mm-hmm. And that was like midpoint of the second round thing. So that, I think, is, if that turns, is the Paddy tries to knock out Gordon in the first round and wears himself out, like not quite as ugly as Maria Akapova, but
Man, I'm thinking that like Gordon is going to come out piss and vinegar, because he is that sort of person. But he's someone who lacks the definitive power to really make good on that. And Pimblett, I think his fall is coming, and it's going to be with someone with power, because Pimblett has a nasty habit of getting cracked real solid at some point in just about every fight he's in. Just Gordon is not the guy to do it. I think if you're talking about someone who's a more reliable finisher, then we've got a conversation. And we're also talking about a 3-rounder. I don't think Pimblett's going to gas that hard against someone like Gordon, who I don't think is going to push, a pace that's going to do that. If Pimblett gasses out, it's going to be his doing. It's going to be him swinging as hard as he possibly can and getting himself all riled up and coming up with air. It's going to be like, without the dancing, but just like Michel Pereira, when he lost to Tristan Connolly, that sort of thing. His own doing and not what his opponent does. So give me Pimblett by second round finish. All right, gentlemen. Let's see what is up next. I believe it is the main event. We will be getting a new light heavyweight belt holder, Jan Blachowicz, the former champion, taking on Magomed Ankalaev, a fight that was now promoted to the 5-round main event. Jay, who you got?
If Glover Teixeira, who is an admittedly massively underrated grappler, but not a great takedown artist, is able to ground him like a year ago, ground him, nullify Blachowicz to the point where Blachowicz is sitting in the guard going, well, this sucks. Let me ride out the rest of the first round because maybe I'll turn around round 2, gets choked out in the second round. If Glover can do that to Jan, I have no doubt in my mind that Magomed Ankalaev will be able to implement that, which is strange because I can't think of the last time that he has really thoroughly dominated with his wrestling. Like, I think Nikita Krylov, he landed like, 3 takedowns in that fight? So it wasn't like a takedown frenzy and he just bull rushed the guy and threw him around and whatever. But I think it's such an easily exploitable weakness. I can't imagine Ankalaev not. I would be genuinely shocked if he went in there and wanted to do what he did to Iwan Kutalaba the first fight, and just go and just let's do it. Or point like at Max Holloway and Ricardo Lamas at the end of the fight. That's what Ankalaev and Kutalaba was at the beginning of their first fight. So if that happens, then he's an idiot. And he's going to get knocked out. But I can't see that. I'm thinking probably third round submission for Ankalaev, where it's a culmination of, okay, yeah, this is what this guy can do. This is everything this guy can do, and he's going to do it. And bless you, light heavyweights. Good luck with that one. I don't think he's going to be a forever champion, but I think he's going to make a lot of people frustrated for a while. So yeah, I'm going to go Ankalaev by submission.
Ben, who you got?
I agree.
Which
with Jay.
I'm sorry, Ben. I have to step in. It would be his first career submission, and that's why I'm calling for that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Ankalaev's only real discernible weakness, aside from like one aberrant lapse in attention at the end of the Craig fight, is that he's conservative enough when not fighting Iwan Kutalaba that he leaves rounds closer than they need to be. Like he dropped 2 rounds to Thiago Santos in a fight that, taken as a whole, it felt like he kind of controlled the thing easily the whole time. He dropped around to Klidson and Abreu in a fight that it felt like he dominated, and it's just because he, unless his opponent forces the issue, doesn't put a stamp on a fight, doesn't put a stamp on a round, and so he just leaves every round closer than it needs to be. But that's not something that Jan Blachowicz is going to be able to exploit against him, because Blachowicz is going to tire and start to flag first. It's a 5-round fight. Blachowicz has good power, but harder hitters than Blachowicz have cracked Ankalaev clean, and he's been fine. So yeah, this is going to be a rough look. I think on the preview I picked this to go the distance, but a stoppage in the second half of the fight wouldn't surprise me too bad either. I expect Ankalaev, as he gets more comfortable, will kind of start rolling downhill on Blachowicz, and then starts the Ankalaev era. And if you're worried about the Islam Makhachev era, like putting a division into a deep freeze, Magomed Ankalaev as a champ is going to make, he's going to make Makhachev look like prime Robbie Lawler. It's going to be some rough sledding, and Ankalaev will not give a solitary fuck if people boo.
Ben, it's very hard for me to add anything else to you, because I agree almost entirely. I do agree with Jay that there will be a finish, though. I don't see Blachowicz being able to withstand that for 25 minutes, especially too if it turns into like a descending trouble just over, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. I think it's going to pile on to where by the 4th round I think it's going to be done. I see it happening by striking. I see it happening by a strike finish and not a submission, but yeah, TKO for Ankalaev. Yeah. So, all right, gentlemen. So Bellator 289 is coming up. The day before we had UFC 282. So, fellas, Liz Carmouche, Juliana Velasquez in a flyweight title fight. We've got bantamweight tournament stuff going on here. The bantamweight interim championship is on the line too in that tournament fight, and we've got Magomedov and Patchy Mix also in the tournament. anything, and this is outside of those top fights, not a lot to look at on this card from what I'm seeing. Is there anything that you want to highlight before we wrap it up?
I mean, those top 3 fights are really good.
Yeah.
Like, those are dynamite. South of that, there's some good stuff. I mean, Denise Kielholtz and Ilara Joanny, it's hot versus cute. You need something to fill out the main card. And then once you get far enough down the card, it's a Bellator undercard. But even though Friday is my day off, I will definitely be tuning in for the main card there.
The only fight that I guess the undercard fight I want to point to is Lucas Brennan's back, and he's fighting Dre Miley. Why is Dre Miley notorious and/or somebody you should pay attention to? Got one eye. He's fighting Lucas Skywalker Brennan, who is undefeated submission artist, and I'm curious to see how that's going to play out because that'll be fun.
He looks like the cover of my favorite Ghetto Boys album. All right, good. All right.
All right, so that will do it for this edition.
Stotts is going to ruin Sabatella, by the way, guys.
Oh,
just ready for that. There's going to be a lot of talking, a lot of bickering, there might be some slapping.
And Sabatello will be like, see, I've been trying to be the next Dylan Dennis, and now I just learned why Dylan Dennis never fights.
Raise or show of hands. Carmouche wins.
Carmouche wins.
Okay, there we go. 3 out of 3.
Carmouche wins easy.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be too difficult for her. All right, fellas. I think that'll do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Thanks, of course. Elia likes to close down every show with chaos and anarchy. So we just got to do what she says. Ben and Jay, thank you as always for holding it down every week. And of course, you can find their work on SureDog.com. There'll be plenty between Bellator and the UFC. There'll be fight night coverage from both gentlemen, so be on the lookout for that. You can find my work on MMA On Point, and like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell 10 more friends. Jay, what's up?
Hey, yeah. Do you guys have like another 3-5 minutes to talk about something on live on air?
Sure.
TJ Dillashaw just retired, and he's off the roster officially. That's all she wrote.
Wow.
He's out all the way out.
Oh, that shoulder must have been absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for his indictment as part of a betting scandal.
This is breaking news as of minutes ago on this. So this isn't a thing we had planned on the show audience here.
Daughter's hitting me in the face with a Kubaton. Also, too, I mean, I guess that adds a little more light to why he even stepped in the cage.
Yes.
If this is something that he knew was a career-ending injury, and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to get one more payday before it's a wrap. That would make sense in some twisted way in this so-called sport.
What's he get, like $200,000 a fight?
Probably something like that.
I hope he took that and put it in like a burlap bag with like a dollar sign on the side, like a cartoon robber. Because that, I almost support this now.
Yeah, because you think like 200, if say it's $200,000, something like it.
It's not much more than that. He's a title challenger. He's off losses. EPO.
Yeah, we'll stick with that number, $200,000.
Yeah.
You walk away with $200,000, of course, minus taxes and whatever the case may be. Depending on what you're doing with that money, I mean, that's a down payment on a few rental properties. Like that's seed money for some sort of business that you're trying to start. There's something to be said. We'll see what his next move is.
Oh, for sure.
If his next move is publicized, say he's opening a gym, say we hear about him and Ally Quinta joining forces in the real estate world or something like that, then we'll know what that last check in the Aljo fight was for.
I mean, it's not, again, it's after taxes and after fees and after management and after all the people he paid and the people that the hush money he must have had to pay to keep people from not talking about his shoulder injury. Like, he's not clearing 6 figures, and that's it.
Where was the fight located? Was it in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, we're never going to know how much he made. It's in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like international taxes and whatnot too, taking a cut.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean.
So,
yeah. Yeah, he's going to get hit. Yeah, I mean, he's 36, so it's not for the shoulder injury being that severe. The one theory, and this is a theory that people had about Derek Minner when he fought injured, is that he could then claim his injury occurred in the cage, therefore it will be eligible for medical insurance through the UFC, which if TJ Dillashaw suffers a shoulder injury mid-fight, even though he did say afterwards he hurt a dozen times or so.
And apparently the UFC knew about it too. So they're too crafty with their paperwork and luring up to where I would imagine he'd be able to claim that was an in the cage injury, and they just pay for whatever medical costs are associated with it without any sort of like pushback. I'd be very surprised at that. But man, it sheds a lot of light. I mean, I'm looking forward to more being reported about this so we can have a little more insight into what's going on. And quite honestly, we probably won't know the full extent of it. Come on now, baby girl. Until like we see what Dillashaw does next in life. So this is probably a retirement that's going to stick, fellas. Like that's, or tinfoil hat.
Boxing?
No. Definitely not with a banged up shoulder. No, I'm thinking, is retirement a way to get yourself out of this regulation train and the USADA pool, like all sort of things that happen when you're no longer a fighter and no longer an active fighter and the eyeballs aren't on you. So we'll see what his post-surgery pictures look like as well. We'll see if the feds come kicking down a door at Dwayne Lugwood's house. Oh, maybe Dillashaw skip town. I don't know. We'll see. So a lot to speculate on, and we'll find out more as it happens. But I'm glad you just refreshed your feed right before we were signing off there. So like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to